Justin, a 35-year-old man who had recently divorced his wife, decided to start a new life in another city. He bought an old but beautiful house on the outskirts of town at a reasonable price. It was a 2-story house with a brick facade and large windows, its backyard ending at the edge of a dense forest. Moving day arrived, and Justin entered his new home with hope for a better future. But from the moment he stepped in, a strange feeling overwhelmed him. It was as if invisible eyes were watching him. The creaking of stairs and doors, even when no one was using them, caught his attention. On the first night, Justin woke up to a strange sound. It was like a muffled laugh coming from the attic room. Frightened, he turned on the light and went towards the sound. But when he opened the attic door, there was nothing but darkness and silence. He thought perhaps he had imagined it. Days passed and strange occurrences continued. Objects moved on their own. Incomprehensible sounds were heard from the walls, and sometimes Justin felt a shadow pass from the corner of his eye. But every time he turned around, he saw nothing. One night, while Justin was watching television, the picture suddenly cut out and the screen went black. At that moment, he saw the reflection of a horrifying face behind him in the TV screen. He turned around in terror, but no one was there. His heart was pounding and cold sweat had formed on his forehead. Justin decided to investigate the history of the house. In the city library, he found shocking information. The house had belonged to a family that had mysteriously disappeared 50 years ago. There were rumors about murder and wandering spirits, but nothing had ever been proven. With this information, Justin's fear intensified. He tried to sell the house, but no buyers could be found. It was as if a demonic force was preventing the sale of the house. One night, Justin was awakened by the sound of a child crying from the attic room. This time, despite his fear, he decided to go to the room and face whatever was there. When he opened the door, he saw a horrifying scene. The room was full of old toys and broken dolls. In the corner of the room sat a little girl in old-fashioned clothes, crying. Justin stammered, "Who are you?" The little girl raised her head and stared at him, with eyes that were empty and black. Suddenly, all the toys began to move, and demonic laughter filled the room. Justin ran down the stairs in terror, but found that the front door was locked. He heard heavy footsteps behind him. When he turned around, he faced a horrifying visage that looked like the same reflection he had seen on the TV. The creature said in a raspy voice, "Welcome to your home, Justin. We've been waiting for you for a long time." Justin felt the ground disappear beneath his feet, and he fell into a deep, black hole. The next morning, neighbors noticed that Justin had disappeared. The police conducted an extensive investigation, but no trace of him was found. The house became empty and abandoned once again, waiting for its next victim. Years passed, and various stories about the house and its inhabitants circulated. Some said they heard screams and cries from the house at night. Others claimed to have seen shadows behind the windows, but no one dared to approach the house. Until one day, a new family decided to buy the house. They were unaware of the house's history and only cared about its reasonable price and good location. When they entered the house, they felt something change in the air. It was as if the house took a deep breath and came back to life. In the attic room, an old doll with black eyes smiled and whispered, "The game has begun again." This story reminds us that sometimes things that seem good and cheap at first glance may come at a heavy price. Justin's house, with all its outward beauty, was actually a gateway to a dark and terrifying world, a place where wandering spirits and demonic forces were waiting for their next victims. If you enjoyed it so far, please hit the subscribe button if you liked the video. The story of Justin and his new house is a warning to those who make decisions without research and solely based on appearances. Sometimes, dark and terrifying secrets are hidden behind beautiful facades that can change people's lives forever. This house, like a living entity, grew stronger with each new victim. The spirits of Justin and all those who had been sacrificed before him were now part of the house's demonic force. They were condemned to eternal life in a world between death and life, where time had no meaning and pain, and suffering had no end. Perhaps one day, someone will be able to uncover the secret of this house and free the trapped spirits. But until then, the house will continue to wait for its next victims, with a demonic smile on its beautiful but deceptive face. Every time you pass by this house, pause for a moment and listen. You might hear the whispers of spirits begging to be saved, or perhaps you'll hear demonic laughter inviting you to come inside. But whatever you hear, know that this house is a gateway to a world that no one should enter. The story of Justin and his new house is a reminder of the bitter truth that sometimes the price of pursuing dreams and desires can be very high. He came to this house hoping for a fresh start, but instead, a horrifying end was written for his life. This story also makes us think about the nature of fear and horror. Do ghosts and supernatural forces really exist? Or are these all products of our minds? Perhaps Justin's house was just an ordinary house, and all these events took place in his mind. But even if that's the case, was the fear he experienced any less real? In the end, this story leaves us with many questions. Questions about the nature of reality, fear, and the boundaries between our world and other worlds. We may never find definitive answers to these questions, but one thing is certain: the story of Justin and his new house will stay in our minds for a long time and make us think. So the next time you want to buy or rent a house, do a little more research. You might unknowingly enter a story whose ending has already been written. A story in which you are not the hero, but the next victim.